Good morning, and welcome to the Camera Life podcast. It's not the Fuji Camera Life podcast, as I incorrectly called it last week. It's the Camera Life podcast, brought to you by Lucky Camera Straps. We're coming to you live. It's Thursday, the 3rd of October, 2024. It's 9 a.m. here in Victoria, Australia, and this is episode 32. Can you believe we're already up to 32? We're traveling strong. I hope that everyone listening and following along is having a great start to the day, or an end to the day if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And please make sure to add any questions, comments. Sorry, that was my speakers. Please make sure you add any comments or questions below, and we'll try and get to them throughout the show. This is coming to you live, but it will be available on our channel as well. And you can also, for audio podcast lovers, you can find us on all the usual podcast channels. So we've got it all covered, pretty much.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Coming at your eyeballs and your earballs. Justin, good morning.
Good morning.
How are things in Bendigo?
Nice. A beautiful day. Sun's out. Lovely. Yeah. Already been outside. It's, wonderful. Nice.
And special welcome to our guest, Mark Condon, who is the founder of Shotkit. And I've known Mark for many, many years. We've worked together for quite some time. Well, I've worked for him, let's be honest. And Mark is joining us today. Welcome. Good morning.
Hey, guys. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. We've been looking forward to having you on. You're not in Victoria. You're coming to us live from what part of the world are you in?
So a place called Koala Beach, which is a small town in northern New South Wales, right on the border, Queensland and New South Wales.
Oh,
I always tell people it's 20 minutes from Byron, that kind of geographically speaking. Yeah,
Koala Beach. That's a bit of a magical name. It kind of reminded me of Muriel's wedding. Where were they? Porpoise Spit. But Koala Beach.
Sorry.
No, you're right. Koala Beach sounds much nicer.
It is the most Aussie sounding name. Yeah, my English mates love that. It's like something off Neighbours.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Now, for those of you following and listening along at home, as I said, Mark is the founder of Shotkit, but he's also been a professional photographer, and he has had a lot of experience in our field, in our industry, and worked with a great number of visual creatives. So we're going to get into Mark's story. But before we do, Mark, I want to just sort of dial back a little bit to your earlier days with the craft. And can you share with us a little bit about your first kind of inspiration, motivation, or experience with a camera or with photography?
Yeah, I remember growing up, this is in the UK, and I remember distinctly the release of the first digital camera. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was a Fuji. Greg, you're going to love this.
I think it was a DP1?
It had maybe. It had like a 1-inch, it was rubbish, but for the time it was amazing. And I think my dad bought it for himself, anyway, we had it in the house and I was playing with it and I loved it. Battery lasted for about 20 minutes, but it was the best thing ever. So that was like my introduction to kind of digital photography. And then after that, I went to Japan and I lived there for about 7 years. That's another story completely. But the funny thing was, when I was there, the only interest that I had in photography was going out with my mates with a pocket camera, at nighttime, taking some drunken photos here and there, that kind of thing. I never once took a photo of anything of any meaning the whole time I was in Japan, which now seems ridiculous. And I wasn't interested in cameras while I was in Japan either. Being a Japanophile, Greg, but there's every imaginable camera photography related thing in Japan. So you're just in the Mecca, but yeah, I had no interest. Until I left, and I had a lot of points built up from one of the camera stores there, Yodobashi Camera. Whenever you buy stuff, you get points.
It's like my Mecca.
Yeah, when I was leaving the country and I had a few thousand points, and I'm like, oh, well, I may as well get one of these DSLR things. I got a little Nikon D40. And that kind of just trying to work out how to use that. And then my next stop was Australia. And then I did some research about lenses and I bought myself a 35mm 1.8 Nikon lens. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with these things? And I started a little project at that time. I called it Project 35, just using the 35mm lens to do 35 consecutive days. And I started taking these photos, and around that time, Facebook had not just started, but it wasn't a big thing. And I just thought, okay, I'll just throw these photos on Facebook. And and then just the response from my friends, I just realized, oh, people are actually interested in these kind of photos. And it just kind of spurred me on and kind of made me enthusiastic about the whole photography game. And yeah, that's the long answer, really, how I got into it.
That's a good answer. Long answer is a good answer. It's interesting knowing you, Mark, and knowing the sort of work that you have done with Shotkit and how you worked closely with you on a number of projects, that even back in the early days, your Project 35 was an early indicator of how you could turn a visual medium or a visual craft into something greater than just taking photos. And I think that itself is inspiration. And I know Justin's recently been on a journey last month with his 30-day challenge of trying to get out and take JPEG images to try and explore what I can do with this medium now that he's not a professional wedding photographer anymore, and he's a little lost, let's be fair. He's looking for a new project, a new direction for photography. And I think it's inspirational for people to hear these stories, because getting out with your camera, even if it's just something like just shoot at f2, everything at f2, or work with the one lens for a month, and I've written an article for Shotkit about my single lens challenge, just using a 27mm pancake for anything I could possibly photograph, and how much that teaches you and opens up opportunities for you to explore the medium further. So that was a long answer to your answer. So you're playing around with this Nikon camera. You've set yourself some projects. You're getting feedback on your images. What was the next step for you? Where did it lead from there?
Just to follow on from your comment about trying to create a project for yourself. I think it was twofold. It was kind of to motivate me to make myself accountable. So I put it online straight away. People were like, okay, what's tomorrow's photo going to be like? Oh, I love this. So it made me complete that 35 days. And then also there's a little bit, let's be honest here, there's a lot of, when people like a photo or comment, it just makes you feel great, and it pushes you further to create more stuff. So after the 35 days, I was exhausted. Like it's hard work, especially when I was using lights. I was trying to do off-camera flash, and it's funny because I made more of an effort then than most of the time in my career to create these images, because I was like, wow, I've got an audience here, even though it was like my mum and 5 schoolmates. It was like, I need to make an effort here, otherwise I'm not going to get these comments and likes. As shallow as it sounds, that kind of pushed me on. And then after 35 days, I was like, okay, what's next? So I did a Project 50, I think, another month or so later, using a 50mm lens. Similar thing. I think I did another Project 35. So 2 or 3 projects like that. And then after that, it was a case of, all right, I seem to have this kind of talent now, probably because I did so much in so little time. It wasn't like, I don't think I had I picked up a camera and I could take a great photo. It was more like I was trying so hard for 35 days, 50 days, then 35 days. Like I suddenly became pretty good at photography. And then it's like, okay, well, how do I earn money from this thing? I love doing it, and you can earn money. Isn't that the perfect combination? So that's when I started to think about like professional photography. This is long before Shotkit, by the way.
What year was this roughly, do you think?
So that would have been 2011.
Yeah.
And what was your day job at the time? Were you still traveling, or was it you were planted?
Yeah, I'd come to Australia, and the first month I'd replied to a newspaper ad, and it was for online marketing position in an online casino of all things, based in Bondi Junction, which sounds...
That doesn't sound dodgy.
Yeah, I know. Sounds completely legit. Surprisingly, the most legitimate place you'll ever go to. Is super regulated. But there's a company in Bondi Junction, 200 people, loads of people from around the world. yeah, lots of young people. It was a great working atmosphere and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I was writing content there. So that's probably leading into the stuff that I do on Shotkit. So I had a bit of a writing background. And it also gave me a lot of time to do other stuff as well. So yeah, I'd be taking photos for fun and doing this online marketing job. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you weren't, Mark, you weren't trained or educated in photography. What did you study, or what were your study interests?
Yeah, so I studied in England. I studied this course called University at the University of Bath. I studied international management and French, which is this big waffly business title. I learned very little, but I did spend a year in France, which was great. Yeah, so to answer your question, nothing to do with photography.
Yeah,
arguably, yeah, not really creative at all. Actually, come to think of it, just a bit of language, bit of business. Nothing that's relevant now.
So you're 100% self-taught. Yeah. And when did you make the transition to increase your photography and become more professional and make it work for you financially? And
yeah, I think I came across so there's a guy, Jonas Peterson, who Justin will definitely have heard of. Maybe you've heard of, Greg. But back then, to some extent now, yeah, he was the world's most famous wedding photographer. Because he was doing something so different at the time. He was going against the grain. Nowadays, it seems quite standard, but he was storytelling. He wasn't doing these stylized pictures. He was very candid, using very desaturated color palette and that kind of film look. And I don't think he pioneered it, but he was definitely in the limelight for using that kind of style. And that kind of resonated with me. And I'd never thought about wedding photography in the past before, but I just looked at his images and thought, regardless of the bride and groom in the picture, this is actually a really cool image. I'd like to do something like that. So he kind of sort of turned me on to the idea of wedding photography. And then even though I didn't imitate his style or anything, my work was nothing like his. It just put me on the track of, okay, wedding photography is actually quite cool. There's things that you can do in wedding photography that you can't do in any other types of photography. And it allows you this creative freedom to some extent within the boundaries of the wedding day. And that really kind of ignited my passion. And then I discovered other wedding photographers and realized there were lots of different styles. But yeah, that was the catalyst of how I discovered wedding photography. And then a portion of it, if I'm completely honest, it was how can I earn money via photography? And there's not a lot of ways that you can support yourself with photography income, but wedding photography is probably the top one at the point. So yeah, that was a big influence. And then yeah, I can tell you how I shot my first wedding if you like. That was so
please.
Kind of Justin must have gone through this as well, and every other wedding photographer actually come to think of it is how do you book weddings when you've never shot a wedding in the past? Like the bride and groom aren't going to book someone just based on their project 35. So yeah, it's kind of like this catch-22. I want to shoot a wedding, but I haven't shot one before. So I thought a lot of people ask other wedding photographers, can I second shoot for you? And that's always like a bit of a, it's hard because if I was a professional wedding photographer, after 10 years, yeah, I'll say, yeah, come along. But after 2 years, I'd be like, I don't want anyone who's, tripping over in the background. I understand why everyone said no to me when I reached out to them. So I thought, okay, well, how about I approach the bride and groom and ask them if I can come along as a free wedding photographer along with their photographer, and they can have all the images. I won't get in their way. So I found someone who was getting married, a friend of a friend, and I just pitched them that. And I said, I'll give you every photo I take, and I'll give you a wedding album at the end of it, and you don't have to pay me anything. And they said, yeah, sure, come along. We've got a photographer, but that sounds great. And then my mistake was I didn't actually contact that wedding photographer, the one that they'd hired. So you can picture on the day, the bride and groom walking down the aisle and the professional guys at one end. And I'm kind of suddenly like coming out the other with this big camera. And I remember meeting his eye and there's just confusion on his face because I was dressed. I was like, I had a suit on. So I kind of looked like a guest, but I had this big camera. And he was like, I didn't order I didn't know there was another guy here. But yeah, he was cool with it. And then, yeah, that started the career really. So I gave them the photos. I asked them if I could use them on my blog. And then I got booking after that, booking.
Very cool.
Man, the parallels between our stories are uncanny. It's quite crazy, actually. Like, I got to quickly recap because it's wild. So, like, I think I got my first kind of main like Canon DSLR in 2011 or 2012, something like that. 2011, I think. And then fell in love with it, wanted to make it a job. How can I make money out of this? Started shooting everything, but realized that weddings, but exactly the same as you, but through other photographers as well. I'm trying to think of some of the names, but heaps of different styles, including, like Jerry Gionis, all those people that were quite famous at the time, and putting content out about wedding photography. But obviously Jonas Peterson was one of them as well. And then the way that I managed to book my first wedding was, first my sister was getting married, and I asked her to ask her wedding photographer it'd be all right if I could come along and shoot during the photo session and throughout the day, but just stay out of her way. And she was cool with that. I did. So I contacted first. That's a little bit of a difference between our stories, but otherwise basically the same thing. Like, can I come along and shoot, but just do my own thing? I wasn't second shooting. And then there was one other wedding photographer in Bendigo who was a friend of a friend. She was very, very good, one of the top wedding photographers in our town. And she allowed me to come along and second shoot with her for the day, and taught me quite a lot on the day. And it is a lot of work. And that's the thing. It's like, it's not, people sort of ask and have asked me in the past and things like, oh, can I come along and second shoot? And it's not just like, she put a lot of work in to make sure that the day still went the way she wanted and that I wasn't in the way, but also I got something out of it. You wouldn't want to be doing that every week with new photographers running around while you're trying to work. It's not something I've ever been keen on, unfortunately. And then, after that, so I had 2 weddings of like bits and pieces that I could put on a website, plus some other random work, all the other random things you take photos of when you get your first camera. And then I booked my first paid wedding for $500, and it was my ex-girlfriend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Times were tough.
Times were tough.
Times were tough.
They were great because they had seen like what I was trying to do and stuff like that. So they knew I was sort of putting a lot of work in, but had not much experience. So they offered to pay me to do it and stuff. And anyway, but other than that, very, 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 very similar kind of way of getting into it. And then it just snowballs from there. It takes a long time, but it doesn't. Weddings are one of those things that you, like you say, you can actually make money because it's hard work, and people value what you do, and therefore they're willing to pay for it. So you can make a business out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very similar stories.
Mark, do you remember your first solo paid gig, a wedding?
It was the one after that. So with those photos, I sent them to all the blogs, and one of the blogs featured me, and I think someone contacted me after that. And I may have told a little white lie to her and said I'd shot a few weddings in the past just so I got booked. I told her afterwards, actually, I said, yours was my first wedding, but up by that stage, she was cool with the pictures.
You already had the money. So
that was my first one.
Do you remember what you charged for that first one?
I think it was 1,200 maybe, which, I'd done a bit of research, and I think, that seemed to be like for someone with no experience but was confident, I guess, of delivering. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it sounds like it's right in that zone where it's
sure.
Yeah, because as soon as I did this one for $500, I think my package was somewhere around that $1,200, $1,500 or something like that, which is basically saying, hey, it's more than half. Like it's less than half of what a pro is charging, and that's why, kind of thing. Like
exactly,
you don't just charge.
You're not true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mark, you mentioned that you put images onto your own blog. Is that kind of where you got started in writing about your photography? And did you run your own blog? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that was just on goldhatphotography.com, which is still online, but yeah, it's not what it once was. I deleted a lot of the content by accident.
Yeah.
About a year ago. Yeah, that was when we switched servers, and yeah, my head was in the clouds, and I told the person that no, there's no content. Anyway, so Gold Hat Photography was where I put that, and I wrote. I think back in the day, Justin will remember this, it was kind of traditional thing to write a spiel. It was nothing to do with SEO back then, which is quite fun. So you just write this entertaining few paragraphs of the wedding day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that kind of bored me after a while, because it was like, this has got to be, if it's boring me, it's boring people to read about this wedding day. So I kind of went off on tangents and said, I turned up on a scooter and it was raining, and I got, I made a story out of it. So I don't know if that helps, but I think that's kind of a key thing even now, like just to do something a little bit different, or just to try and show your personality when you put that content out there.
Mm.
Very interesting.
For sure.
Yeah, I find that because
Hey, sorry, go on, Greg.
I was just going to say, I find that too. Like, I write professionally for you guys, both of you, and I write articles to meet a brief and to meet specific requirements, whether it is or isn't SEO targeted. But I have my own blog, and on that I am far less careful about what I write. It's more raw. It's more about me. It's more about my creative journey and my images. So I find that a really good balance to have that as a writer and as a photographer, because obviously a lot of the photos I take, especially for Shotkit, Mark, they're product shots and actually getting out and testing new gear that's been sent to me by different brands, and taking photos of the gear and with the gear if it's a camera or a lens. But then being able to get out on the weekend or any other day and just, being able to shoot whatever I want. It's a really nice balance to have that kind of that alternative outlet.
Yeah.
So, Mark, talk to us about the inception of Shotkit. What spurred that idea? What was the little light bulb that caused that?
So that was when I just started wedding photography, and I needed some gear, and I desperately wanted to know what these other photographers that I admired were using. So now, for anyone who's experienced photographer or professional, it kind of seems odd to say, like, I like Jamie Oliver's food. What frying pan is he using? That's the equivalent thing. I like this guy's photos. What camera is he using? But for a beginner, that seems absolutely normal. I like Tiger Woods. What wood is he using? It's just everyone wants to know the gear that someone uses, and they think that that's going to help them, which to some extent it definitely will. So yeah, I reached out to these wedding photographers, and I just said, can you tell me what camera you're using? And most of them didn't reply. I went into forums and I started asking, and I realized that other people were asking as well. So back then, it wasn't so much about what presets is he using or how does he edit his photos. It's literally what lens is he using to get that kind of creamy bokeh. So yeah, I realized, wow, there's nowhere that's actually explaining this, and I really want to scratch my own itch here. I want to know what my favorite photographers are using. So yeah, I built this site, a very basic version of Shotkit. Ironically, it's pretty much how you see it today. It was just like it was just like a grid format.
Yeah, I might bring it up while you're chatting.
Yeah, and then, sorry, I just lost you there. Are you still there?
Still
guys?
Here.
Yeah, still here.
And I thought these famous photographers, they're never going to reply to me unless I show them something special. So just taking Jonas Peterson as an example, I mocked up a page for him with his name at the top, and then I put some of his images on there, and I wrote a little thing, and I emailed Jonas, and I emailed these other people, and I said, here's a mock-up of how your page could look. I'd really appreciate it if you could tell me what gear you use and write a little bit about your photography background. And I just went through Google, went through the first three or four pages of every type of photographer I could imagine, and just sent out these emails. And yeah, I think the replies were great. After that, you have to chase them up for the the content itself. But I got a handful, and I got Sam Hurd, which I'm guessing a lot of the photography audience will know whether they're a wedding photographer or not. But yeah, a great wedding photographer who also does a lot of other stuff. And at the time, even now, he was really well known. So he agreed straight away. Kudos to him. He was like, "I'll take a chance on this new project," and yeah, great. I'll be on there. So I put Sam Hurd there, and then obviously the next emails that I sent out, I was like, "Sam's on the site. Do you want to be on the site?" And it was kind of a little bit of a marketing snowball after that. But yeah, that was it. So when I launched the site, I already had 15 to 20 photographers on there, amongst them Sam, and I can't remember the others, but there was some semi-high profile people. And then I remember distinctly clicking the go live publish button, and then my mum was actually visiting me. This is in Sydney, and we'd gone out for a game of golf, and I was just about to tee off on like midway through and my phone started buzzing and ringing, and yeah, one of the photography sites, F-Stoppers, had put it on their site, and then SLR Lounge and journalists, and yeah, so it's a really fortunate way to launch. I think we just suddenly got a lot of traction because we were doing something a little bit different at the time.
I just want to jump in here, mate, and just have a look, show people the site. So this is shotkit.com, and there's Shotkit covers gear, reviews, software. There's education sections, which I sometimes do some articles for. And then there's a photographer section. And when you look in the photographers, you can break it down by different genres. And then it will actually bring up literally their shot kit, which is going back to what Mark's original concept was. And you can see here that these are different, obviously different photographers. Let's have a look at Alexander. This looks interesting, the human elephant. And you can see that the gear that this person, they're unfortunately using a Canon. But it actually talks about, every photographer that Mark and the team approach about being on Shotkit. They'll provide a little blurb about their story, how they got into it, what their genre is at the moment, and also specifically what gear they're actually using, and links to their socials. So, it's really fascinating to see. And some of the kits that you see are massive, and others are quite minimal. Like I'd probably consider this a fairly minimal kit, but some people's kits are huge. You look at something like this, for example. Who's this? This is Bobby. Bobby's shooting with film cameras.
A lot going on.
Oh no, there's a Sony in there. A couple of Sonys. Well, there's a lot of cameras. They've got more cameras than you, Justin.
Nah, not even close. What I find really interesting, first of all, I spent way too much time on this site when I was, because this was like, there was a need for it when it came out, and that's why it did so well, because I was trying to build my kit, and when you're new to photography and you're trying to build a business around it, and you're also growing your skills and learning. So you constantly feel like you don't have everything that you need. I need to get this lens. If I get the 2.8 version instead of the f4 version, I'm going to be a better photographer and stuff like that. But you have very limited budget. So you're constantly trying to figure out, do I buy the 35mm 1.4 prime, or do I get the 7200 2.8? What's more important for like the next step in my photography? And being able to jump on here and just like trawl through, high level respected photographers' kits and be like, oh, Sam Hurd doesn't have a 70 to 200. Okay. So it's not essential, or whatever. And it sort of could reinforce it. What I usually found is it just reinforced whatever decision I wanted to try and decide on. I could just find a kit that justified buying whatever lens I was trying to buy. But it gave an insight that otherwise was just not available. And it was super valuable. I spent so much time on there.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. Yeah. Glad it was useful.
I think also, what I've always found, putting aside my affiliation with the site, what I've always found appealing about Shotkit is that it's kind of a central go-to place. Like if I'm looking for a particular review of a product, then it's kind of Google will often bring it up first, but it's often my first port of call. If I'm thinking about software, or is this Mac, like I've just recently upgraded my Mac and I actually use Shotkit to look at a whole bunch of different reviews before heading to forums to see what people were saying about, different levels of RAM and processor and all those sorts of things. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on there and about software. But I do want to share one little, if I can just steal a moment to share one more screen with you about Shotkit. This is the article that made all three of us, it made worlds collide. And I know that Justin and Mark knew each other beforehand, but this was an article I wrote for Lucky Straps. I can't remember when it was. Sorry, an article I wrote on Shotkit about Lucky Straps. And it was one of my earlier articles. I can't remember if it gives the date. No, it doesn't have the date on it. And it was a review for Lucky Straps. And it was the first time that I was introduced to Justin. It was one of my first articles on Shotkit. And it's just interesting that now here we are many, many years later, talking about photography again. I just find that fascinating. I think it's funny how things come around.
Yeah, I'm just looking, it says 2020.
I was going to say it would have been 2020 when we released our quick release stuff. But prior to that, we'd been on the site in a few different forms for years, I think. It's sort of like I said, it's one of those things that I spent so much time on the site. We ended up crossing paths and doing something. It's really cool to see how fast it grew into something so huge. Because I think the first time our straps were probably on the site, I reckon back when a wedding photographer called James Day was using our straps, I think he put his kit up on there and had a couple of our straps on there or whatever. And I think maybe that's when it first appeared in like a photographer's kit or something like that. And then since then, there's been a few articles or whatever. But, we've kind of almost been not buried in it, but it's not like you guys have only had a few straps on your like every strap from every manufacturer is on this website and somewhere in someone's kit or in an article or in reviews or in the 10 best strap, like Peak Design, all of the best ones from all over the world.
It's the same with bags, tripods.
All
the accessories.
There's so many options, and it kind of all comes together on here somewhere. It actually
Mark, sorry, mate.
I was just going to say it'd be amazing. I don't know if it's even possible, but if you could search kits by gear.
Yeah, we had that. We had that in the early days, but it became so overwhelming that it slowed the site down. Yeah, there was so many.
I can imagine. Because there's so many bits of gear.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'd be a really useful feature. It'd be interesting.
Who else is using 5D Mark II? And
exactly.
What are they
That'd
using
be pretty wild. Yeah, just to be able to look through and see, or I don't know. Because what I find really interesting is obviously reviews are amazing because reviews are usually attacked with like a professional sense of I need to outline things about this product and what's good and bad and stuff like that. But the little nuggets you get out of people's kits and what they write in there when they say, I actually bought this flash trigger, but I don't even use it for flash. It's got this thing or what, there's all these little nuggets in the kits of different ways to use gear and why they chose a particular piece of gear that is super valuable.
Yeah. But back then as well, it informed a lot of my gear choices as well. So yeah, it's great. I was using it just like you were using it, Justin, and bit of confirmation bias. I'd say, right, I want a prime lens. Who's using prime lens?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I did. I have to be honest with myself. It was just like, all right, I need to justify this. I'll go and find a really good photographer that's already got it. Okay, perfect.
Nice work.
Now I'm going to tell the wife to spend $2,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Mark, at last count, how many photographers are featured on Shotkit?
Okay, here we go. Let's have a look. Inside your camera bag. I should know this offhand, but they get published willy-nilly, and I can't keep up. I think there are over 2,500.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, we get them updated every now and then as well. So yeah, it's this constant thing. That was one thing that I wish that could happen a bit easier on Shotkit, that the photographer could update their own kit, so it could, become a really up to date sort of database of what people are using. Like if you go to Sam's Kit now, if someone found Sam's Kit now, they'd be like, "Whoa, he's using really old school Sony cameras."
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just, people are too busy to update their kits, and I think when it has to come through us, it's just another step. But yeah, that would be a nice thing to add to the site.
Actually, just while we're on this, just as an aside, if people want to put their kits on here, because I'll be honest, I've always wanted to be on the site, but I've never
said so.
I've never done it because it seems like doing the photo of all the gear and stuff like that. It seems like it needs to be quite a creative shot. Most people do.
No,
the gear layouts and stuff are always pretty cool.
I did mine on my timber decking out the back.
I'll tell you the other reason.
Pull yours up on the screen, Greg.
Pull yours up. The other reason I've never done it is because, and this is a lesson to everybody and myself, my kit's always been probably one piece of gear away from being the perfect kit. So it's like I'll just wait until and then I'll submit it to Shotkit.
I'd argue that your kit is several pieces away from being a perfect kit.
We'll see. Wait till we get over to this Bright Festival. But
we'll see. Here's my one. Now this I do need to update it. So this is an XT. I think it's an XT3, an XE3 and my X70 with my owner camera bag and my 3 f2 Fuji primes. I still have the X70 that they're going to bury me with that. It's in my will. I don't have an XT3 anymore, but I've got an XE4. So my kit is actually smaller. I've still got these lenses.
What camera straps are you running now?
Oh, not these. I found some on Temu.
Some other ones. Oh, those Temu ones are good.
Temu's are good.
Yeah, because I don't like leather camera straps. Are shit. I don't like leather.
Terrible.
But, and the O&A bag is gone. I think I donated that to charity. Yeah, it's gone. It's
too bulky. Like
beautiful and heavy, really heavy.
That's what I found. Yeah.
Well, I just got the Wandered 21 Provoke off my mate Adam, who is the distributor for Wandered in Australia. So I got that in time for Bright. So you'll see that next week, Justin. But yeah, so here it is here. This is me. And a little bit about my journey, how it began, what I started with, and what I'm shooting. Yeah.
So, Mark, if I probably, all right, I'll submit a kit. What's the process for myself or anyone else that's listening that want to submit their kit? Is there like a minimum? Do you need to be a certain level of famous to go on Shotkit, or like how does it work?
No, before we had some criteria that revolved around. It's a difficult one because there's people that were submitting with really great photos, but then their kit photo was just had no thought whatsoever put into it.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to turn them away and said, do you think you could, lay your camera gear out? It sounds silly, but that's kind of our ethos. We just want it all.
Yeah.
You can do what you want with it, but just make a bit of effort. And then at the other end of the scale, you'd have someone with the most amazing kit photo, and their photos were like my Project 35 back in the day. So it's kind of lacking a little bit. So initially we were like, okay, professional photographers, that kind of, steps that first hurdle. But then obviously there's a lot of difference in professional photographers. So then we were thinking, well, social media following, and that's a tough one as well. You could be a great photographer and not be on, all the socials. So now I kind of found that really difficult because at the time it was me doing everything. And if someone had sent me them, I'd be like, you're not quite ready yet. But I didn't want to be that person saying, the guy at the door saying you're not coming in because you're wearing yellow sneakers. So I passed that off to the team. I was like, look, I don't want to be the one doing this. You guys use your own judgment. If you're unsure, then ask me and I'll give my opinion. But yeah, as you know, photography is super subjective. But I think as professionals and other professionals on the team, we do have a bit of kind of judgment involved. So yeah, professionals, amateurs, anyone can submit. Anyone can submit, and we've had people on there with just one camera, one lens. That makes no difference whatsoever. We can feature someone with the most basic gear, the most expensive gear. As long as the photography's there and the gear photos, you put some effort into it. Yeah, we're happy to feature. And I'm always excited when it's a genre that we don't have already. So strangely enough, real estate, not the most interesting photography profession, I've got to say, but we don't have many real estate photographers. And their kit is always interesting because they've got these cool lenses and crazy tripods. So yeah, weird genres are always welcome. We had to start turning away wedding photographers because there were so many that we were getting.
I remember you saying to me years ago, I said something about I'll submit my kit at some stage. It was probably while we were doing something with Lucky Straps, and I was like, I'll submit my kit at some stage, and you were like, oh, good luck. It's a pretty competitive category, wedding photography. And I was like, oh wow. So obviously
we've it's not like that anymore. We've kind of loosened the criteria a lot. But I think in general, people look at the site and they click around and they can judge whether they're ready to submit or not.
Yeah.
So that's kind of helped. It was initially right at the start when people were just throwing in their submissions because they didn't know what to measure themselves up against. But yeah, that's funny that you hesitated, Justin, because I had that same thing. I was like, this is my site. I need to be on the site. And it took 2 or 3 years before I plucked up the courage. And then I was like, this gear shot, it's got to be epic. You know, I've got to put my camera on an eagle and get it, my lenses on its wings.
Did you get that
crazy
shot?
Ideas. Yeah, but don't pull it up on screen because it's pretty lackluster and there's a lot of old gear on there. But yeah, get on the site, Justin. And if anyone else wants to submit, it's shotkit.com/submit.
Does it cost money to submit?
No, it's all free. We got rid of that during COVID. It was never very much, but that was just another thing to show us that the person was involved in the process. We charged $30 or something.
So you didn't get spammed with like just random, So
exactly.
In terms of the benefit to the photographer, obviously probably the major benefit I see is contributing to this database of information that could help other photographers make gear choices or even just enjoy. Sometimes I just enjoy having a read of why people have picked certain gear and that kind of stuff. So that's probably the main thing. Are there any other benefits to doing it
I was always surprised to hear because my only metric is traffic to the site. My only metrics are traffic to the site and comments. So comments everyone can see, traffic to the site only I can see. So when someone submits their gear and we put it online, then obviously I can see those things, but nothing else. I have no idea if people are resonating with this stuff. So back then, and even to some extent now, the comments are minimal. No one comments. And then the traffic is also, for the site, it's really big, but for individual photographers, it's based a lot on that photographer's social media network, and how much they choose to promote themselves. So someone like Sam Hurd puts it in his newsletter, immediately lots of people come and see it. But looking at the front page now, these people, without knowing their names, it's just basically based on their promotional strategy, whether people come to the site, as well as people who just land on the site and just click around. So all that to say, I didn't have much of an idea how many people were looking at each one and resonating with whatever they'd done. But then people started emailing me that were on the site and saying, I got booked for a wedding in USA and I'm an English wedding photographer and it's because of your site. And another one, a guy called Jay Casario said, Leica offered me a sponsorship and it's because they saw me using a Leica camera on the site. And yeah, it sounds a bit like these are all made up stories. I have so many stories of people being booked for work, commercial work, sponsorships. Greg, you got in touch with Justin, I guess, because of something to do with that. So yeah, I think that's kind of an unseen benefit. And I hesitate to put that as a benefit on the site because it just seems a bit airy-fairy. But the fact is that, a lot of people in the industry are looking at the site. No one's commenting. It doesn't really matter. But if you see someone who's using your camera as a marketing professional, you'd be reaching out to them straight away and saying, you know, I love your work.
Yeah.
This is especially true for the smaller brands like that. Leica, that's an outlier. But a lot of these product shots that people send in, they're using small brands.
Yeah.
But they're passionate about those brands. So, Justin, you'd feel amazing if there was a photographer using your products and being passionate about it. So that just multiplied across the site, and I think it's just like
I actually receive probably once a month, maybe twice. I receive contact from smaller brands with unique, weird little products. A lot of them aren't anything to do with photography, but they've seen the traffic on Shotkit. My Shotkit, if you click on a link that I've written on Shotkit, it travels to my author page, and then from there they can go to my social or my website. And often I'll get people reaching out to me through my website saying, hey Greg, I read your article on Shotkit. You know, we sell these weird little whatever it might be. Would you like to have a go? Sometimes it feels a bit like spam, and it's, you know, red flags go up. But it does. I mean, even just in that simple way, it does lead to
opportunities,
connections
and things.
So, Mark, speaking of writing on the site, you know, obviously we've got the photographer lists or pages where people can submit their shot kit. And the site obviously offers a lot more than that. There's a lot of content, thousands and thousands of articles covering gear reviews, education, software, and news articles that are constantly updated. In fact, Shotkit's my first port of call to get the news for our news segment on this podcast. So you have a lot of writers on site. How many writers do you think roughly write for Shotkit, I should say?
Between 10 and 20 at any point, yeah.
Yep. And you do a bit of writing yourself. I mean, we've co-authored some big articles.
Back at the start, I was writing everything. Now, it's few and far between. But every now and then, I feel like I should get my hands dirty again and I dive in. Yep. Yeah, some of those big best camera backpacks, best camera bags. Yeah, those were the ones that I put together myself. Again, vested in personal preference of receiving those cool items of gear and actually getting my hands on them and writing about them. Yeah, still excites me now.
I think I remember seeing a photo of you. It might even be on the site from early on, and you're in looked like a shed space maybe, and you were just surrounded by camera bags that had been sent to you for review. How many camera bags do you have now? Because we're all guilty of having too many bags.
You know what? I can get angle this thing up here. So I've got one here. That's Peak Design's new travel backpack. Nothing to do with photography. Got a couple up there. A couple of new Peak Design colored bags there. The Coyote colorway. In the garage, I've probably got about 15. A couple more in there. But the one that I use. It's like the camera gear thing. You're never satisfied. I've not been satisfied completely by any camera bag or backpack. There's always something that I'd like to change, and I'd love to make my own one, but it's never happened. But yeah, if I had to do a professional job now, there's a Billingham. Can't remember the number, but it's one of those big old-fashioned heavy. It looks like a fishing bag. Yeah,
something someone from the UK would choose.
It is, isn't it?
It is a classic.
Yeah. I remember when I got it, it was like 6 years ago, my tastes were different, and I put it straight away on Marketplace. I'm like, this is like an $800 bag, and I can't even sell it for $200. No one wanted it. But I'm glad I've got it now. I'm a bit older and a bit more boring. So that's that. And I've got let me grab the list. It's visual, isn't it?
Yeah. While he's doing that, I'll just pull up a couple of comments. Get off my digital lawn. Tony says,
Tony.
Is Mark the UK Justin, or is Justin the Australian Mark? And Me Pop Now says being able to search for photographers via genre is a cool feature. And I completely agree. I don't know if I would have spent anywhere near as much time on Shotkit if it wasn't broken down by genre. If yeah, I think being able to sort of look at wedding photographers, specifically their kits, that's what hooked me at the site when I was trying to grow a wedding photography business. So I think if it had just been all submissions in one big pool, I probably wouldn't have spent anywhere near as much time on there. So yeah, I agree. How'd you go?
Show and tell.
Yeah, I don't want to turn into the back podcast, but yeah, that's the most English bag you'll ever see.
Oh yeah,
It is.
Yeah, and then this is my one where if I'm traveling and trying to do a one bag travel thing, that's the Shimoda Explore V2.
oh yeah.
What I love about this bag is the straps with the mobile phone pockets on the front. I don't know why more bag makers don't do that. It's just really useful.
That's the feature that I wish my bag had for sure.
Yeah, okay. And then this is the Wandered. What's this one called, Greg? Do you remember?
No.
Is that Wandered? That thing's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. It's like one of their sort of travel slash.
Yeah, I
I don't
should
know what
know.
that
This
is.
is for the
Is that the
overseas-
duffel? Is that the travel duffel?
No,
they
it's
do?
It's still a
it'll come-
backpack.
It'll come to me. It didn't sell very well, but I think it's a great backpack if you need to carry like 60 liters.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Well,
but
if you
yeah,
go
they all have things missing that I wish was included in one single bag.
they're all a compromise, aren't they? If
I know. They
if
really
you ever
are.
want to, if you ever want to make one, I'm game. I'm game. I'm just too scared to do it by myself. But I'm the same. I've owned a lot, and they're all
No
like I
one's
say,
ever satisfied.
they're so close. But you're like, oh, if it just had that out of this, I've got 3 tubs, like big tubs, full of dividers from all the camera bags that I've ever had. Because every time I get a new bag, I rip all the dividers out because the dividers never work for what I want. So I have to piece them together from dividers from other bags to make them fit the way I want the gear to fit properly.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
I have a problem.
So that Wandered bag was called the Fernware.
Fernware. That's right.
And they don't do it anymore.
It looks like they still do it. Yeah. Just
okay.
Sure, they've got stock.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I love that bag because it's so light for its size. That's my biggest pet peeve with camera bags is when they're heavy, when they're empty.
When they're empty. Yeah. Well, I just got the Wandered, the Provoke 21 off my mate. And I took it out, what day is it today? Thursday. I took it out on Tuesday. I went for a walk in the city. I loaded it up fully because I'm taking that bag to BFOP. And having recently had, neck and neck issues, I wanted to see what it was like. I wanted to make sure it was comfortable. And I went out for a few hours, did some street photography in the city here in Melbourne. And it's one of the most comfortable backpacks I've ever worn, full stop. And even fully loaded, it really supported the weight well. Like it's really well thought out. They do make exceptional products, and I like the material choices on it too.
It's really well waterproof, that bag.
Yeah, it is. I still don't like camera backpacks so much where you have to take it off, unzip it all to get, like, you can get to your camera through the side. Oh, here we go. Justin's going to get out his special little, his baby carrier. It's his baby carrier.
It's my kangaroo pouch. Have you used the rotations, Mark? The Mindshift
I've got
rotations?
someone in that big backpack review. Yeah, I think it's a great bag.
The
Bit
new
too much
versions.
going on for my liking, but it's if you're an outdoor enthusiast, definitely.
My dream, because I know they've patented the way this system works. Think Tank, Mindshift, same. My dream is to get in touch with them and do a Lucky Straps version that I can design, because it's missing some stuff and it's not quite right. I don't want to be like, hey guys, I know you guys are like the biggest bag manufacturer in the photography world, but I've got some ideas that I don't think you've thought of.
I'm sure they're gagging to hear from you, Justin.
Oh, I'm positive they'll be like, okay,
Awesome.
awesome.
That logo on the front there.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
Do
a
it in black.
YouTuber I follow, Chase Reeves. He does a lot of bags, wallets, travel accessories. He's based in California, I think, and he's got quite a big following. But he does heaps of bag reviews, not necessarily camera bags, although he does do gear bag reviews. And actually, there's a recent video where he reviewed all of his wallets, and he had this massive tub of wallets, which kind of made me think of you, Mark, with your garage full of camera bags. because he gets sent them all from different brands wanting to promote them on his channels. But he actually reached out with, I can't remember the bag brand, but he reached out to a bag brand and ended up making his own travel bag.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he he's kind of one of the top YouTubers for reviewing bags, travel bags and everyday carries and that sort of stuff. And he went out and had his own bag made, and he did some videos where he went out to the factory, and I think his factory was in Vietnam, maybe. But yeah, just interesting, taking your passion and your hobby and your need to that next level to actually go, oh, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to make my own.
I'll make my own.
You know, which is kind of like what you've done with Lucky Straps, Justin. You were looking for something that's comfortable, secure, sturdy, premium, that, you know, we all get, well, those of us that are serious about the craft get a brand new camera, and the first thing we do is we pull the strap out of the box and never touch it again.
Toss it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason it was because I was shooting weddings and events, and I wanted to be able to take my camera to all these places and not look. Like, people are always going to notice you got a camera because I was using big cameras, but not look out of place. You know, if everyone's wearing a suit and stuff and you're wearing a shirt, but then you've got this like ugly Canon strap or whatever, it just didn't. Yeah. Whereas if you had like a nice leather one or whatever, people actually would comment on it. So it was that, and obviously an extra comfort. But yeah, it was scratch your own itch. The good thing is making our first camera strap, even though it was actually quite a bit of, it took a long time. It's a lot easier than making a camera bag. This camera bags have so many little bits and pieces and pockets and stuff. I can't imagine how difficult it is for them to go through that design process and get everything still not quite right.
Yeah, especially these newer Peak Design products, they're getting a bit too complicated in my opinion. There's so many pockets. The Peak Design travel backpack, I remember going to Thailand to shoot a wedding, and I couldn't find stuff that I put in there. It was literally pockets on pockets on pockets.
Yeah, you forget where you put stuff.
Which that's their design philosophy, and they're obviously experts at it. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes it can get a little bit too. I don't like having everything spread all over the place in specific little pockets. Sometimes I prefer just to have a removable pouch or whatever in a larger pocket, and just Yeah,
I agree.
Mark, on the topic of travel and bags and sloppy segues, you recently travelled back to the UK, a bit of a family trip, and I don't want to go into details about the family trip, but I'm keen to know what, if any, camera and lens and camera bag you took with you.
It's well, before I left, actually, before I go on any big trip, I think about which camera I take that I don't already own. So I want to spend time with a camera that I've not used before. So I reach out to a brand, and I was lucky enough to go to Iceland 2 years ago, and I thought, okay, epic scenery, I need a medium format camera. So I reached out to Fujifilm. That's another story, actually. Remind me, because that's a funny one. I borrowed a lot of their GFX.
We've mentioned that story without naming anyone on the podcast before. So
okay, we won't go
that story. Okay, now
it clicks. Yeah.
Oh, it was a confidential one, and now I've just blown my cover. Anyway.
No, I didn't mention any names or brands. I just said I know of a person who lost a very expensive camera.
All right. Well, I can't backtrack on that one, so let's move swiftly on to So I went to the UK, and I thought, okay, well, let's reach out to Leica this time, and I got a hold of their Q3. And we're traveling with the kids and going to a few different places, so I just wanted the most minimal setup ever. So I literally just took the Leica Q3. I didn't even take the camera bag, just threw it in with all the other stuff. Sorry, Leica. Then we went to the UK, went to Greece, and I just used that the whole time. And I actually owned the Q2. I paid for that $6,000, and then I sold it for $6,000 about a year later. So I had a few annoyances with that camera, and I couldn't justify having such an expensive camera around me when I went out. It just didn't seem right, especially because I was just taking photos of my kids and just everyday stuff. But I thought, okay, I'm going to give this camera another shot with Leica Q3. They've improved a few of the things that annoyed me about the second one. But yeah, I came back in and I was pretty underwhelmed again. We can go down the Leica route if you want to, but I haven't used a lot of their cameras, so I won't comment on their brand as a whole. But just that camera in particular, there's a few things on there that shouldn't be on there at that price point, and a few things that are missing as well that are on other cameras that are much cheaper. But yeah, the image quality is great, the lens quality is great, a lot of improvements, but yeah, I do not think it's worth the money. Even if it was, it's just, yeah, I don't know how they can get away with charging that much. And it surprises me.
Can we dig into it?
Because Justin has that camera. He spent that money. It wasn't gifted to him. Or loaned to him. He spent.
And I took it
hard-earned Lucky Straps dollars
for 3 months as the only camera to the US.
You are the Aussie version of me, mate.
I think there's
outrageous. I'd love to hear. Tell me what you think. Like, are you happy to go into detail about the things that you don't like, that you sort of think, hey, why did they do that? Why wouldn't they do this? Because I have sort of some thoughts about it as well. I love the camera, and I understand. I won't comment too much on the price because it's like it's their call. If they want to charge that much for it, it's my choice to buy it or not buy it. Obviously, I don't think it's. If you objectively question the price, it's not worth the money, but it's whether someone's willing to pay that for it. It's kind of like a Rolex. It's like, is it worth it? I don't know. It's if you want to buy it, kind of. But I'd love to hear what you think just about the use, how it feels, and what sort of choices they made that, probably aren't right.
Yeah. So I'm not affiliated with Leica, nor am I with any of the camera brands, but there is a part of me that's grateful for them trusting such a expensive piece of tech with me to go over.
Especially given what happened in Iceland.
Oh yeah, who was that idiot?
They probably don't know about it.
Yeah, my twin brother. So I came back from that one and I started writing the review, and I started the review by saying, elephant in the room, the price. I just summed it up like you did, Justin. There's some people who want to buy a Rolex just because it's a Rolex, and that's fine if it makes them feel good. I totally understand that. Using the Leica is a joy. That's a definite. And whether it's the price or the heritage or the actual camera itself, it's hard to say. But yeah, then I started writing this review and I realized that there were more negatives than positives. And I got to the end and I thought, this is kind of a tough one because I don't want to be biased in any way when I write a review, obviously, but then I don't want to slag off a product that is already out there and a lot of people are enjoying. People have spent, a salary on this camera. I don't want to be the one to say these are the things that you should be looking at because it sucks. I didn't publish the review, but Leica didn't actually follow up with me and ask me about the review. If they did, then I was going to go back and forth with them and say, this is what I plan to publish. If you want to contest it, then let's do it before I publish it. But they didn't actually go through with that, so I didn't publish the review. And as it happened, another photographer published a review on the Leica Q3, and that was his own thoughts, and he loved it, and I was fine with that. A lot of people love the camera, that's fine. But yeah, to answer your question, Justin, the specific things that I disliked about it was the first thing, the flip out screen, which I was really excited about because I really wanted that. I think the implementation is terrible. I just think the way that the camera is so beautiful, and then they've got this flip out screen that sticks out by half a second. I just don't think the design aesthetics there with that. And the way that you have to pull it out, I couldn't pull it out on the first touch every time. I think they need to make that little latch bigger. So yeah, they're really small usability, and their design perspective is subjective, but it annoyed me after using it for a month. And then there's another user issue I think that they could fix with firmware, where when you're shooting, there's a black line that shows your settings and you can't get rid of it. That reduces your the viewpoint, so it becomes from full frame, it just reduces it, so you have to guess where your composition is. And you can set it after the photo. I just think that's odd. They could get rid of that.
That is really odd.
I've had trouble with that for sure, because I've been shooting JPEG a lot. My whole trip I shot RAW plus JPEG, but I haven't edited any photos from that 3-month trip. All the photos that I've started sharing on social media and stuff, all JPEG straight out of the Leica, unedited. And I was very careful with my compositions, And then I've still noticed in a couple of them, I was like, there's like the top of a bin lid in the bottom of it or something, but it's in that spot that you can't see.
It's really an odd choice, isn't it?
Yeah, because obviously in cameras that have a little bit more customization, like Canon's, for example, you can choose the way the viewfinder lays out, and there's like an option where it fills the screen or an option where it's smaller, but you can see the whole composition and stuff like that. It's like, you should be able to, that should be pretty straightforward software stuff for them to just give a couple of choices. Do you want to fill the screen with an overlay, or do you want it to have the stuff underneath with a very clear, full composition, slightly smaller?
Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah. And then, I don't think the autofocus is there yet either, to be honest, especially coming from any of the big camera brands. I don't think it's, any flagship camera you compare it to is just worlds apart.
Yeah.
I wonder if the new version with the 40mm has better focus performance, or if they just slapped another lens on.
I don't think it's changed, but the continuous tracking. I'd hate to see what the Q2 was like, because everyone was like, wow, the Q3 is a massive step up in autofocus. The continuous subject tracking actually works now, blah, blah, blah. I tried it a couple of times on very normal, like people milling around kind of situations. And it was very hit and miss. Very hit and miss, to the point where I just used single focus or manual for what I was doing. Yeah, it's a shame. And then the last one is just the startup time. I think it's too slow for something that they push as a street photography camera. When did you use it? Because that's gotten better, at least.
Yeah, I used it after they improved it. So I didn't. I was comparing it to the Q2, but I think that they could still make it quicker. It's difficult though. I get why it's slow. Like, there's such huge files. I don't know if that would affect the startup time if it's trying to read them before it starts up. But anyway, I think they should. Yeah, that needs to be worked on. But it's a great camera. I shot it in JPEG the whole time I was there. Even when I owned the Q2, I never used RAWs on that camera. It's just it's great. So the image quality you can't argue with.
That's the thing. To get full frame 60 megapixel, and that lens is exceptional as well. In that form factor, that's the one thing that I still come back to, where I'm like, this isn't just it's not just a mantelpiece camera. It's not just like a, hey, look at me, because it does do something that no one else does, which is in something that weighs the size of most other people's camera bodies with no lens on it. It's got a sensor and lens combo that outperforms basically every other camera in terms of straight out of the box image quality. Like, you'd have to get a Sony A7R5 with a great lens to get similar image quality, which you could easily do for less money, but it's going to be much bigger. And so that's probably the thing that it still is that's special. Well,
that's all pulling on that, drawing on that heritage that's older than a lot of the Japanese camera manufacturers. They've always been about sharp optics. I mean, they started as an optics company, making glass lenses for spectacles and rifle scopes and all of that sort of stuff in the early days before they moved into the photography field. Their image quality has always been.
I think at the end of the day, no matter how much you spend on a camera, if it makes you pick it up and use it, then it's fine by me. And back then with the Q2, that it was making me pick up a camera outside of professional work, so I was willing to pay that price for it. But it could be said the same thing about a $50 film camera, if that makes you pick it up.
Or apparently every Fuji ever made.
Every Fuji does that. It has magic. Let's just quickly jump to a couple of comments. Now, Mark, you're happy to stick around a bit longer and chat a bit more?
Yeah, can I go to the other room and say something to my wife before she leaves? I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, we'll allow that. Let's jump to some comments from Jashani. Jason, I believe it is.
Jason.
G'day. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking along with us. For a genuine hiking trip, the bags that have the main camera area access against your back do make some sense. And Jason goes on to say you can put the bag on the often wet, dirty ground without said dirt later ending up on your back. I think that's my problem. I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I don't like my bags getting dirty.
Yeah.
So the idea of having to take it off, put it down, unzip a big panel. I get it. The good thing with the Wanda is it's got the little side access panel, so I can grab whatever camera and lens I've put in that door. You were going to say something, Justin?
I was just going to say I completely agree. Obviously, that it's better if you don't have to take it off, which is why I like the rotation. It's got enough of a gear pocket in the rotation part that I very rarely have to take it off to access extra gear. But if you need more gear, like a lot of the snow trips when I was shooting snowboarding and before the 7200s were small enough, like the new Canon one, to fit in those rotations, I needed that stuff and accessible in the pack. Rear opening is the only way to go for that kind of thing because like he says, in the snow, you put your pack down and then open the backpack. If you go the other way, if it's a front opening, you're putting your back part down into the snow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's warm from your back. It soaks up all the water. I made that mistake the first year. So never again. Everything was then rear opening. Side opening is really good. I could recommend the Mindshift, if they still make it, Photocross 13 and 15. I haven't got one here, but Jim's got mine at the moment. They're cheaper bags too, compared to like Peak Design and stuff. And they perform really well for active, and it's a side opening, so you can kind of sling it under and still get to it a little bit without taking it completely off. But I agree.
Yep.
Hey guys.
Welcome back, mate. And Jason's also said, the Q has a genuine mechanically coupled manual focus lens, complete with macro setting. None of the focus by wire stuff.
That is a joy to use, and I really like that. And that's the thing that every now and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll buy an M series camera one day, but I probably won't because they're outrageously expensive. But that feeling, I don't know why no other camera manufacturers have focused on that. No pun intended. I assume even none of the Fujifilm lenses are all focused by wire as well, are they? They're still like, there's no feedback when you manually focus. It's kind of weird and.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So the X100, I've still got the original one. I assume they still operate the same in the way that they manually focus. It feels kind of horrible and with no precise, whereas the Q3, all the Qs and all M lenses, it's a physical spot where every time your thumb rests in a little divot on the and then you know that if you put it here, it's going to focus at the same point every time, and that's like you get a muscle memory to it. It feels wonderful, and it has some feedback. It's like it'd be cool if another camera brand kind of tackled that at a cheaper price point, in a X100 style point and shoot kind of all in one camera.
Very good point. Just before we move on with Mark's story, I just want to remind our viewers that you're watching the Camera Life podcast. This is episode 32, presented to you by Lucky Camera Straps from Bendigo, Victoria, Australia, Earth, the universe, all of that. We're talking with Mark Condon, the founder of Shotkit.com, and also has been a professional wedding photographer. So, Mark, are you still shooting professionally, or is that put aside for now?
No, I'm not. I shot my last wedding sometime last year. Went out with a no bang whatsoever. It was a little fizzle. Yeah. I brushed that one under the carpet. I hadn't announced anything officially. I guess if a mate got married, I'd happily shoot their wedding. But yeah, not promoting myself or anything like that.
And so where are you at in terms of your motivation? Like what caused you to sort of go, well, that's it, I'm not going to book anymore?
There are a couple of things actually. The first was gear related, funnily enough. When I was using a DSLR, so the last 4 years I was using a mirrorless, a Sony mirrorless. Prior to that, I used a Nikon, the 750 most recently, a few different ones up until that point. But so I was using a Nikon D750 and then just two prime lenses. And I found it was a very involved process. Justin and anyone else who's still using DSLRs will appreciate the fact that it is so much more involved than a mirrorless camera. And that point was the high point of my career. I was booking a lot of weddings. I was shooting overseas. I was traveling around the world. And I think it was because of that involved process. I was trying very hard to create the images on the day. I was experimenting, and just that small thing of not having the always on display of a mirrorless camera, not having eye tracking, not having a million frames per second. You had to be a lot more skilled, I think, in my opinion. And just trying harder, and the whole process of that the gear being more difficult to use, and my images were better at that point, I think, than they were later on in my career, because I started to become a little bit lazy, because the mirrorless cameras make everything so much easier for you, especially as a photographer who relies on getting sharp focus on a subject all the time. So with the Sonys, any of the cameras now with eye tracking, in fact, you can hold down a button, or you don't even need to hold down anything, and it will just lock on an eye, and you can just concentrate on the composition. That's essentially all I was doing. I put it on aperture priority, don't have to worry about the shutter speed anymore. Auto ISO, don't have to worry about that. Eye focus, don't even have to worry about focusing. I'm just literally looking at composition and light. Dead easy, in my opinion, after that much experience. But back in the day when I had to worry about all these things, it was just a more involved process, and I was churning out better quality images because of it. So I switched to Sony. I was like, wow, this is amazing. There's a lot of things I don't have to worry about anymore. And ironically, it made me, I think, a worse photographer, because I was delivering these photos to clients. Everyone was happy. That was cool. But I stopped posting to my site because I was like, these photos are great. They're fine. Everyone's happy, but they're not pushing the boundary. I'm not experimenting anymore. I'm not using off-camera flash to try and do these unusual techniques. And it was because of the camera. It was making it so easy for me. That's kind of a bit, if you're just starting wedding photography and you pick up a mirrorless camera, it's not going to be easy for you. Don't get me wrong. It's still going to be hard. But for someone, it's like if you had film and you went to digital, you'd say digital is easy. There's a stepping stone in this process. But yeah, I was at a point where I was like walking into a wedding and thinking, this is easy. This is easy. It's a walk in the park. I'm just looking at light and composition, bang, 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 managing the wedding day, directing the bride. And it wasn't challenging enough for me. So yeah, it started to get boring for me. And I felt a little bit like I wasn't doing the bride and groom justice, because even though they were happy with the photos, they were over the moon, I felt like I could have given them more in terms of creativity, really pushing myself. So it was those two things that I just thought, it's not right to carry on doing something that's not pushing me. I kind of took a step out. I went out on a fizzle because my wedding, the last wedding I shot, it was actually a really fun one, and it made me think I actually still like the process of getting out there and meeting people and having fun on their, best day of their life. But I gave them the photos, happy with them, and that was it. Didn't publish them, didn't even put them on Facebook. I hadn't put anything out there for about a year, and I was just like, it's just money in the bank now. And I think when it's like that, it's just, you may as well be doing a day job. So
I was going to ask that, whether it was maybe obviously I can definitely see what you mean about the gear. I guess making it less mentally challenging in terms of the image creation process. Obviously, it doesn't help with any of the other stuff. You still got to manage the day and talk to people and do all the things that are, like you say, it's not just easy, but once if you're already experienced at that stuff, and you've done it a lot, and then you take a few more barriers away, it becomes even easier. And but was there also a little bit of not lost love, but were you you'd done it for a while, at the same point that you transitioned to mirrorless, you're also kind of like excited about other things. You'd shot a lot of weddings, and it was just less. I found even when your progress slows down a little bit, because in the early days, you're learning new techniques and you're getting more client, or you're going, last year I booked 30 weddings. Hopefully this year I can book 35 or whatever. But once you I don't know, say you've booked 40 weddings a year for the last 3 years, you're pretty consistent with your output and all that. So everything's kind of cruising along all right. I lost a bit of interest for some reason. Was it kind of like that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I started to get very, what's the word? Sort of critical about the wedding industry. sorry, not the industry, just weddings in general. Yeah. I'm not a fan of weddings. I never have been a fan, but it never was an issue for me. I was just like, well, I'm paid to do this. I'm going to do a good job. But yeah, just the template of a wedding really gets to me, and the stress for everyone who's involved in the wedding, that kind of strikes me as odd on someone's, really important day. But yeah, I've got a lot of negative thoughts about weddings themselves. So that kind of, I guess that was eating away at me when I was sitting at the best man speech and thinking, I'd like to be somewhere else. It wasn't right for me to be receiving the client's money to do something that I wasn't really happy to be at. So there was a lot of that. I still understand, I still understand why people want to spend a lot of money on their weddings. That's totally fine. And I understand why brides want their, fairy tale wedding. But I think if you ask any wedding photographer who's done it for a while, they probably have the same opinion. And you should spend your money on, whatever, your first car, your first house, go on holiday and just have a wedding with 10 people. But that's totally personal opinion. Yeah.
I ran into very, very similar issues in that sense. And I found myself having to, it was from just a change in attitude, but also I went through a divorce, separation, within 2 years of getting married while we were kind of at the height of our wedding photography business. And that certainly makes things very hard, when you're coming into summer and that's all unfolding. And then at the same time, you're starting to see some of those patterns in terms of, like you say, in the industry and what happens in the wedding day that seems a little bit templated on some people's days. It was great. What made me able to keep going for a while was then you would go to a wedding that was very, very, you could really sort of feel a strong connection through the whole day of everybody. And you were like, oh, okay, it's not like all weddings are this way or whatever. It's just, some feel, like you say, they're stressed in the morning. And you're like, don't be stressed, have fun. Like it's about fun.
Yeah.
And then it does start to eat away at you a little while. And like you say, if you're not there to love every minute of it and do the best sort of justice you can for the clients, it's hard to then keep doing it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it's a very, very interesting point.
So I think you two are twins separated at birth. Very similar story. So as we've mentioned earlier, Justin's a little bit lost at the moment as to what to do with all this expensive gear that he's bought. Mark, what are you doing now that you're not a professional wedding photographer anymore? What creative outlets are you exploring?
So I have the cameras, probably like Justin, I have all my wedding photography stuff still. And I sold a fair bit of it, but I've still got 2 cameras kind of ready to go if I ever feel like getting back into it, which I probably won't, but I hesitate to sell it all. So now I'm just using it literally just for family stuff, taking pictures of the kids when we're on holiday or just at home. But it is a bit of a creative low point in my life, if I'm completely honest, where I don't have any purpose for getting the camera out other than just to document what's going on in the kitchen, sadly enough, like with the kids or if I'm on holiday. I don't have a reason really to be taking photos other than for my own fun. I'm not the kind of person, I never have been the kind of person that just will go out with a camera and take photos of flowers or even landscape really, or just street photography. None of that's really interested in me. I like to have a purpose for a specific purpose, whether that's to earn money or to document my kids' lives. I'm envious of that initial buzz when you first pick up a camera and you are taking pictures of stuff. Like back in the days of my Project 35, I was excited to take pictures of absolutely anything. That's probably the same for a lot of different hobbies, not just photography.
For sure.
But I don't have that many professional outlets at the moment with the camera. I'm trying to find a reason to pick up the camera right now. Gear is great for that, I think. I love gear. I love the fact that it makes you excited about something. I think people talk about gas, it's bad. Yeah, obviously you're spending money for stuff that you probably don't need, but ultimately if it makes you happy and it makes you take pictures, then I'm all for it. Like go out and buy that camera. Go out and buy that camera strap if it means that you're going to take it outside. And it's often the smallest things. It doesn't have to be a camera. It's just like something that you feel and it's great, or something that you look at that's great and it makes you want to go out and take a photo. Yeah. Well, I think everyone needs that to keep the flame burning for photography.
Yeah, I think so too. Sure. Yeah. Gas is definitely a thing that I think we still need to keep burning, if you pardon the pun. It's a loose pun. FOMO is a different thing. I've moved beyond FOMO, mostly for financial reasons. But gas, every now and then I'll kind of look at a lens and I'll sit on the idea of it. A few months ago, I picked up I replaced my 50mm f2 because I had sold it when I became unwell. And just buying that new lens and just using that lens only for a few weeks, really, I still use it obviously, but really kind of inspired that sense of I want to try and shoot street with this. I want to go and maybe, walk through the gardens and the botanical gardens and just try it out, because I hadn't used that focal range for a while. And I've actually I've got a loan lens coming down from Fujifilm Australia to take with us to Bright, Justin. And it's the little talked about XF 70-300, which I'm excited for because I typically shoot primes and I typically shoot mostly wide street travel family stuff. And I actually picked up that 50mm originally to do better product shots for my gear reviews for Shotkit. But the idea of getting a 70-300's got me really excited, because it's like, well, do I shoot with that focal length unless I'm reviewing something. I'm going to take it to Bright with me, which is a whole new environment. So I'm really, it's starting to feel like I'm starting to count down sleeps as to when I get the lens and when we head to Bright and get to play with this new toy. So, I think you can take the kid out of the playroom, but you can't take the play out of the kid. I think we all get a little bit excited for something that's new that's coming along that, may inspire some level of creativity.
It doesn't have to default to like the desire for new gear should inherently be thought of as bad. And a good photographer wouldn't worry about their kit. They would just use a crop sensor DSLR from 2001. It's like that's not, it's more just keeping it in check and not constantly worrying that unless you have the latest and greatest, you're falling behind. But that doesn't mean you, like, the best photographers in the world, when you really dig into it, they say gear doesn't matter, but they also have they've put work and time into refining their kit, and whether that's sticking with an older camera for some reasons, that you'll probably still find that they've tried out a new camera and they were like, but then I decided to stick with my other one because of this and this and this. So it's not like they don't care about gear just because they're a good photographer. Most of them actually really do when you dig into it. They're just obviously skilled enough and knowledgeable enough to know that they could swap to a whole different kit and probably still produce great work.
I think the risk with gas, gear acquisition syndrome, for those of you following along, and FOMO, fear of missing out, is it, especially when you're new to photography, you think you need a lens for every occasion. And often when I'm writing education pieces or fluff pieces for you, Justin,
don't tell people they're fluff pieces. They're educational.
They are educational. But I'm a big advocate for saying, just shoot with what you've got now.
Yeah.
Go out and use that lens until it doesn't work for you anymore. But don't think that you need to move beyond the kit lens even within your first 6 months. If you're new to photography and you've just bought a new camera, whatever the brand may be, and you've got a 24-70 equivalent kit lens, then work it to the bone. Yeah. Use it until you can use it in your sleep. You can use it with your eyes closed. You can use it drunk, whatever it may be, before you get into gear acquisition syndrome. And FOMO is a funny thing because there's, it's like any consumerism practice. There's always going to be something better coming.
For sure.
Like you guys went and spent all that, Justin especially spent all that money on a Q3, and then, they've just dropped another one. And it's like that with everything. You buy, whether you buy Fuji X100s and you pick up the 5, you think, oh, this is amazing. And then they announce the 6 and all of a sudden it's out of stock. You kind of get that itch that, oh, wow, I must need that camera.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the comments there. Nev Clark saying is it he or she? I don't know.
Nev's a he. He's an alumni of the show. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And he said that he got bored with his own gear and it's okay to change because
sorry,
it's
Justin.
like a whole new thought process. Yeah, I totally agree. If you get bored with something and something else inspires you to create more work, definitely.
Yeah, why not? It could be that, like switching. I think that's something that people often ask about. Should I switch to this new, to Sony because they've just released a new camera or whatever? And my answer is usually no. Don't switch your whole kit because someone released a new camera. There'll be another new camera and another new camera. Just like be patient and use what you've got. Unless if it's for a different reason where it's not just you're not just chasing the most megapixels or something. If you just want megapixel, if you want a different feel, like obviously switching to Fujifilm from full frame, whether it's switching to a smaller, lighter crop sensor system or to
better image quality,
to their bigger, slow, average mirrorless system. What's it called? Medium format.
You were shopping for one of those last week.
I'm still shopping. I'm shopping for everything all the time. Then if it like Nev switched to medium format, and you can tell just by the way he talks about his images and making the images, and how immersive it feels when he takes a photo with the GFX system compared to his Nikon system. It's like he's loving it, and whether that's
and his craft and his work has blossomed as a result.
Exactly. But
he always took good photos and it's just elevated.
Yeah, but it may not even be like that. Might be just, who cares? It could be a Nikon sensor hiding in there and the images would look the same. But if it's inspiring him to do it, then it was obviously the right choice.
Well, I think all the Fuji sensors now are Sony made.
Are they?
Which is Yep.
So it's only Canon that are kind of holding out and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who knows? They probably all come out of the same factory.
Yeah.
Temu
sensors.
Temu's everything.
Yeah. Although I will say, one of our guests who's also helped us co-host the show, Greg Carrick. G'day, Greg, if you're listening along at some stage. He deals with FOMO in such a fascinating way. Mark, Greg is a Fuji shooter, but he was also a photojournalist. A film photojournalist, like film photography. And he's now, his FOMO is now taking the form of adapting a whole range of different lenses to his GFX or his X series cameras. And he even, he went out on a shoot with the lens out of an old cinema projector and had a 3D print, a 3D mount, a mount 3D printed for it, get that around the right way, and attach that to his GFX. And that's how he's dealing with his gas and his gas. He's just getting all these weird, wacky old lenses and finding a way to, cram them onto a GFX sensor and exploring his craft that way. And some of his work is amazing that he's achieving with these things because it's not something that anyone's doing.
He also does the most outrageous night photography that I still want to try. I haven't had a chance. He takes a GFX to the edge of cliffs near the ocean.
That's a recipe for disaster.
At midnight after he finishes his radio show, when there's no moon, pitch black, and he calls it, what's he calls it? No light photography or something like that.
Yep.
He just points it towards what he can hear and then just sets a long exposure and has no idea what his composition is. And then that's the photo. It's,
oh my God.
And they look awesome.
Yeah. I've got to see these.
It's such an interesting thing to be like, I don't know what's out there. I'm going to see what's out there by using this camera to see in the dark.
To see what can't be seen.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea. And the photos look great. I've got to try it. But obviously you need a very dark environment. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe a rope stop me from falling off a cliff.
Yeah, maybe. Or tether. Tether to the van.
Yeah.
Tie yourself to the van. You'll be fine. Yeah, Nev wants to try that as well.
Yeah, you got to do it, Nev. Show us what you can
get out
get.
there,
You've got all the great landscapes over there to do.
Yeah,
lightless photography.
So, Mark, you kind of hit a space where you're not working professionally anymore. Obviously, you're still running Shotkit. Thank you very much. What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah.
What do you see as your next project?
Yeah, I haven't actually mentioned this publicly, but Shotkit is now owned by someone else, or another company. So I actually exited a couple of years ago, almost 2 years ago, and I'm still working as the founder, as the manager, essentially doing what I did before, but the paychecks are all going somewhere else, and your wage is being paid by someone else, Greg.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it doesn't really affect the site in any way. Hopefully nothing's changed. No one would have known about it. There's no reason to. But yeah, it does leave me in a bit of a strange position where my head is still in Shotkit, and come December this year, but by the end of the year, I can, if I want to, just go off and do something else. But then the problem is, what else do I do? So yeah, that's kind of been on my mind for a bit. But with my head still in Shotkit, it's very hard to think of something else to do. So yeah, it's a bit of a watch this space one. I'd like to say that I have something ready and waiting, but I don't. I'm just giving Shotkit my full attention until the time when I get booted out. Yeah, maybe this time next year I'll still be here, like a bad smell in a elevator, which you can't get rid of. And yeah, I may still be on Shotkit, but yeah, there's a bigger chance that I'll be doing something else. But exciting. It will be gear related. I think it will be gear related. Yeah, can't take that out of me. I love the gadgets.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you want to make a camera bag? I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's
all for it.
I think we should call the brand Megapickle.
Megapickle.
Yeah, we'd have a green camera bag with lumps all over it.
It's just shaped like a pickle.
Yeah. So basically a green Shimoda.
That's super exciting. There might be sort of a blank slate coming up for you that you can do. Is that
whatever you want?
Fun or scary? Like feeling like you can do whatever you want in the coming years, and yeah, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it is a little bit scary. It's like I feel with Shotkit, yeah, it was something that didn't exist, but there was a lot of luck involved just with the timing, and very fortunate that it grew quickly. I put a lot of work into it. A lot of work, but then people put a lot of work in things that don't take off. So yeah, there was a lot of luck involved. So yeah, I feel like I was extremely lucky. Like I haven't had much corporate work experience. I worked in the online casino. That was a fun job. Wasn't corporate in any way. And then I just suddenly, made this site that's really popular. And fortunately, I've managed it to, it's been acquired. Now it's the next thing. But I feel like I haven't, it hasn't been realistic in terms of like really grinding away, trying to make it successful. Don't get me wrong, I worked really hard for it, but there was so much luck involved. So I feel like the next thing that I do, if it fails straight away, I'm going to be, well, what happened?
Shouldn't it just be easy?
One thing and it worked. So yeah, I've definitely, done my 10,000 hours on Shotkit, and it got it to where it is. But I could do 10,000 hours on the next thing, and it won't be a success. So yeah, that's kind of weighing on my mind. Yeah, I want to definitely take this same kind of gear kind of concept to some other industry, and see if I can kind of replicate that, trying to serve the community first and then serve myself. As I'm quite into cycling now, so that was one avenue that I was thinking about.
I was wondering if there's any
you two are
sports.
twins.
No, I wasn't going to say cycling specifically, but I was about to say, this was obviously born out of something. It was already a passion for you. It was already something you were interested in. You weren't just like, I did an analysis of industries and I've found that photography would be a good industry for me to start a website in. It was like it was a natural evolution. I was going to ask if there's anything else in your life that you could see something evolving out of. So cycling is obviously something like that you could see.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I did actually think about starting a cycling related site like that. And yeah, probably that would be the direction that I had, something to do with sport. And yeah, gear and, showing off what you use, that kind of thing. Seems to be tried and tested, and oddly doesn't exist elsewhere. So yeah, maybe that. But yeah, there's a bit of nerves, definitely. I think for anyone starting something new.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the fun part. I mean, if you knew it was a guaranteed success, it sort of like takes all that fear and excitement that turns it into. I think that's what channels us into working hard. Whereas if you're like, oh, I know this will work, you might not put enough work in to make it work.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, and I'll miss working on Shotkit and just the community of all these photographers. Like if I look at the homepage now, I've only had a hand in one of those photographers. Like I've not seen. I'm seeing these for the first time, just like you are, because I don't work on that part of the site anymore. And just Greg, you clicking into one of them now, I was like, oh god, I've got to read that one later. That's great. Whereas before, when it was much slower, I'd be looking at each one and ironically making my own gear choices based on what they're submitting. But now it's this beast that I can only focus on one thing while all these other things are happening. I guess that's the same with any business as it grows. But I
think that's why you build a team of people that get it.
Sure. Yeah,
and have some passions and interests, and I think we've got good people in the Shotkit team, especially India.
Yeah, definitely. Just to clarify, that's a name of a woman.
Not the country. Sorry, yes.
We have a lot of slave labor, but it's not in India.
That's funny because I've emailed with India before, so I didn't even think. I was just like, oh yeah, I know who they're talking about, but I didn't even think about that's hilarious. Yeah. Got a good resource in this country.
I know, yeah.
The whole country.
The whole country.
Yeah, Timu.
Wow.
Let me just use another sloppy. I like my sloppy segues. I think we should call the camera strap that the sloppy segue.
I
might get marketing
in trouble for that. I don't know.
Yeah, Megapixel though. We definitely need a Megapixel one. Let's jump to some news, and proudly brought to you by Shotkit.com because I'm using their site to bring up the news. Let me just jump to a screen. First news article of the day, Oscar-winning actor Jeff Bridges is working on a new wide lux film camera. So we've seen in recent times a resurgence in film. It peaks and troughs as things go along. We had the Pentax 17 came out a couple of months ago, which was the brand new 35mm film camera that works on a half slide. So it kind of the whole sensor, or there's no sensor. The concept is that the lens is flipped so that it only takes a half a 35mm frame. So a 24 roller film will actually get you 48 shots. Lower resolution, but still nice.
So kind of like a Fujifilm crop sensor almost. Yeah. It's like not as good a quality, but that's it.
Yeah. So Jeff Bridges, who's apparently a really passionate film photographer, and he's worked with a wide lux before. He's looking at developing a new 35mm film device called the Wide Lux X. And on a recent interview with Stephen Colbert on The Late Show, talked about most of the photographs I take are done with a wide lux camera. It's a panning still camera, and I use the 35mm version. It's got a 28mm lens that pans, so the whole unit slides to get the panoramic shot. Pans nearly 180 degrees. Instead of traditional shutter, it has a slit that as the lens pans, it exposes the film. And you can see here the way that it's cut out. And so that whole section rotates almost 180 degrees to get the panoramic shot. So whereas on a traditional digital camera or on a smartphone, you actually pan the lens with you, like the whole phone. In some most digital cameras now, you can choose a ratio and you can choose to do panoramic shots. And others, it will take multiple shots and stitch them either in camera or in software later. But this one's a film camera. So
do you know how fast it turns? Like, can you handheld this bad boy? Or oh, here we go. It says down there, speed options.
So pretty slow.
What's
So
it?
you'd have to have a
15?
pretty, you'd have to have a pretty. I think
wonder
that's
if
meant to
that-
be 1/25th. The second
I was
one.
going to say, well, yeah, 1/25th, and then
Yeah,
maybe even faster,
1/50th.
1/50th,
1/25th. I don't know.
because it says
Anyway.
1/15th. Yeah. So okay, but either way, a tripod's probably ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Widelux camera, the original was from the Canon Camera Shoko Company, 1958, and these are they're not being made still, but he's looking at reinvigorating the brand. He's going to be working with Silvergrain Classics to form a German-based company called Silver Bridges, which is named after Silvergrain Classics and Mr. and Mrs. Bridges. I think that's really interesting.
cool.
I like when the Pentax 17 came out. I think it's good to see that film photography is still alive. Obviously, a lot of people are still working with film cameras, and there are other brands that make film cameras. There's Lomography makes some kind of kits that you can pick up, along with many of their amazing 35mm film. So that was our first news article.
Yeah, very cool. I like the original company's name, Panon. It's like they were like, we're making this panoramic camera. What should we call our company name?
Panon.
Panon?
I didn't pick up on that.
It's like Canon, but with a panorama.
Mark, have you ever shot with film cameras?
Yeah, I have. I've got this Yashica.
Oof.
Yeah.
Whoa, what is that?
It's a Y. I should know. It's a Max 124. It's got these two lenses here, and then
that's cool.
This is the viewfinder. So it's just so confusing to shoot because you hold it at waist height. That's why camera companies never lend me stuff. You hold it at waist height and look straight down, and everything's reversed as well as you having to look down. It's not particularly fun to use. I've got to be honest. It's really confusing.
Is it a medium format? Like what is that?
Yeah,
Does it shoot
It's
120?
120 roll.
yeah, that's right.
And why did you buy it, or did it get sent to you?
No, I got that secondhand in the UK a while ago, and I think I just wanted to try something different at the time.
Yeah.
And then I've got this Nikon film camera, which was my dad's old camera.
Wow.
He passed away a while ago. So I didn't actually ask him much about it, but yeah. I'm not actually sure which one this is.
Nicomat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I haven't shot with that yet, but that's the 35mm. The standard
If
one.
anyone in the comments knows what that one is, please feel free to drop us a line and let us know.
Yeah, I should know, but yeah, I don't dabble with film much. It's just such a process to get it, about all the stuff involved with it. I'd love to, I'd love to have the time and patience to do that kind of development in the darkroom. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, the few times that I've shot with it, I found it odd that I was importing those pictures back into Lightroom and then fiddling with them, and it was kind of like this. I want to make these look better, and I know I can, but I shouldn't because then it's digital photography. But then it was originally film photography. I couldn't get my head around how I should be using it.
Yeah. When I went through my spurts of film photography, I did get all the scans back and that sort of stuff, but I've still got stacks of them. I just got every single photo printed in the 6x4s. That's what I wanted. I was like, I just want.
That's
send
cool.
me the photos, and I just want to look at the photos as prints, like the way it used to be, and I don't want to even know about. Like, it is what it is. Whatever they look like is what they look like. Because I'm the same. It felt weird to be editing them in. I didn't realize people edited film photos in Lightroom, the scans. Yeah. So,
I just kind of wanted digital copies of them in case I lost the prints, and then when they were in Lightroom, I was like, that exposure's one click away. I just want to fix it. But no, you're not allowed. You shouldn't. Don't touch.
David Dare Parker. G'day, David. Love to get you on the show, by the way. Nicomat,
please.
Japanese branded Nicormat. Cool.
okay.
Yeah,
right.
it says, Isn't there a model though? Like I know it says that right there. Maybe that is the model. Just says nickel matte.
Yeah, usually there'd be like F something off to the side or something, or
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very
But
interesting.
yeah, David, we definitely want you on when you're not too busy. Please let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Drop us a line. Speaking of medium format, terrible segue. Let's go to another piece of news. Oops, no, I don't want to share a slideshow. Why would I want to do that? Hasselblad. Our news today is proudly brought to you by Shotkit.com. Hasselblad's limited edition Earth Explorer X2D is worth a look. So this is very similar to how Leica will often do.
I was going to say maybe a little too similar.
Maybe a little too similar, but I think there's something in it. I mean, Fujifilm just did it with the X100-6, but that was an absolute schmozzle of an event where they released the 90th birthday edition, and they only did 1,935, which was from their year of founding.
What made it a schmozzle?
Well, they were going to do, you could sort of pre-order from select retailers, I think, and it went pear-shaped because there was only 1,135 of them.
Okay.
And the demand was massive. I mean, it's hard enough to get an X100 Mark VI, just a standard edition, but these limited editions obviously are really appealing. And so a lot of places held lotteries, each sort of Fujifilm region, like the USA, Asia, Japan, and Oceania, and Europe. So they had lotteries that you could kind of, your name would get drawn. But people were getting in multiple entries, I think, and then grabbing them at the price that it was, it was a few $100s more than the original version, but then flogging it for, ridiculous amounts of money on secondhand marketplaces.
Yeah. It's
So
always the way.
It is the way. And the same thing, I mean, completely different thing, but Sony have just unveiled, not camera, but Sony PlayStation 5 they've just announced a 35th anniversary edition that's got the same colorway and branding as the original PlayStation, and that's had the exact same issue. They only made limited numbers. The retailers like JB Hi-Fi here in Australia and EB Games put up ballots. People got them, and now they're selling them for ridiculous amounts of money on the secondhand market.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Hasselblad. So Leica had they did one with Daniel Craig, the 007 version of one of their M cameras. They did it with Lenny Kravitz. They did like the Safari green ones.
Yeah, I'll show you once you've finished it. When you go to pull this down, I'll bring the Leica one up that I mean, because it's not the special edition thing that gets me. It's this specific colorway.
Okay, all right, cool. So the X2D100C, it's a 100 megapixel medium format camera. They released an Earth Explorer edition, which offers a little bit more. They're releasing the new edition for serious outdoor use with how much are these worth? Like 10,000, 12,000? It comes in a tundra brown color option. So here's a camera here, and it comes packed with a 55mm 2.5 lens, a limited edition strap, a UV filter, 2 batteries, and a charging unit. And so the other thing that happens is when you power this on, there's a special screen that is a kind of like a mountain range in the background. So that's the load screen. I don't know how much that impacts how fast the camera is.
Slows it down a bit.
Yeah, probably. And then each one has a unique serial number, which is what they did with the Fuji X100 Mark VI limited edition versions. So that's it there in all its glory. And the news article here talks about how it's, clearly a collector's edition. It's obviously an amazing camera, but there's the whole kit there. And they could really do with a leather lucky camera strap, let's be honest.
Yeah, I was trying to see who's making those for them. Hard to know.
Special branding on the strap. But other than that, it's still a X2D. The normal edition of the camera costs around $8,200. I imagine this is US dollars, Mark.
Yes.
Does
Right.
Stephen usually do US, I think?
Yeah.
The Earth Explorer kit will set you back roughly $12,000
Whole US.
US. However, the collector's edition Earth Explorer kit with engraved accessories and special packaging is 14, sorry, not 100,
so
14,000.
Normal X2D with the accessories would
The
so it's saying
Yeah.
X2D with the normal with the kit, with the accessories,
12,000.
but not in a kit would be 12. But then for the privilege of the green and stuff, it's 14.
And getting everything engraved, it's 14,000 US.
Worth it.
That's crazy.
Now show me the photo at the top again, and okay. So that's
Everyone seen that?
And then this is the Leica Q2 Reporter Edition, which has been out for a long time and very, very popular. I'm just going to say she looks very similar.
Yeah, there's it.
And I can see why they would do it. This was a popular color. Like, people love this thing when it came out.
Well, they also had the Safari one, which was a similar green.
Was it?
Yeah, but that was an M. I think that was an M.
An M. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm all for it. Like, some cool colors and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a pretty hefty upcharge. I think from memory, I don't think the Q2 Reporter was significantly more expensive. They seem to do it more like halfway through the product life cycle to reinvigorate the product that's a few years old now. They bring out like a color or whatever, but I don't think they often charge a lot for it.
Yeah.
Because they're already very expensive, I guess. But yeah, that X2D is interesting. Is that a bigger sensor than a Fuji medium format? Is that the difference? It's like it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's in between like a full frame and a Hasselblad. Sorry, the Hasselblad is bigger than the Fujifilm. The Fujifilm's in between.
In between, yeah. Because I've often seen Fujifilm haters online say it's not a real medium format anyway.
Yeah, and they've stopped calling it that. With the original X100 and the 100S and the 50 and the original 50 S, they were referring to it as medium format photography because they wanted to get people on board. But in more recent marketing, they don't call it medium format. They call it either larger than full frame or larger format.
Okay.
So they're not technically branding it. I just want to see if there's any limited edition X106s on the eBays. 7,000, 11,000. And they're listing the numbers,
Whoa! Surely no one's buying those. Yeah, bring it up. I'll bring it.
Just very quickly, as we head towards the end of the show, let's just end on this sad note. So this one here, this one's in Japan.
They won't sell that.
11,000.
I mean, you think
1134.
You think a Q3 is expensive? Imagine paying the same money for a crop sensor.
Hey, it's more than the sensor size, you idiot.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so and there's heaps of them. There's a lot of them here.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So it clearly, out of 1,935 limited editions, there's a good 15 of them on the secondhand market that are saying that they're brand new. So people weren't buying them for the love of photography. They were buying them for a commercial venture.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
It is.
It is sad.
David Dare Parker also commented he enjoys visiting the Shotkit site. Great advice and lots of fun. Gear acquisition syndrome is still a thing for sure. Thanks, Mark. Do you know David, Mark?
No, I don't, but I like his photo. Looks like
he's a photojournalist.
A photojournalist who's done some serious work. And we really want to get him on the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to ask, I don't know if David, if you're still listening, but if you are, have you put your kit on Shotkit, David? And if so,
I'm looking and he has. So yeah, sorry.
Cool.
I missed that one.
Awesome.
You missed out of the 2,000 photographers. You should know them all.
Well, you know what? Photojournalism, that's my favorite genre on the site because their gear, the stuff that they include with the cameras, it's amazing. Some of the stuff, we've had bulletproof vests, we've had flare guns, all kinds of crazy stuff.
I always check that one out if I go on there, because I also have this is probably stupid, but I have this thing where my ultimate kit would be like the kit you would take to a war zone, or what I like to call like the zombie apocalypse. You know, like it's one or two lenses, a camera body. You know, like you're not taking a Pelican case to a war zone or to the end of the world. You know, so that's how I like to often think about my gear. It's like if I could just grab this stuff and go get dropped anywhere to do anything, it would do the job. And it's so often like a Nikon D4S and a 24-70 or something like that, and a bulletproof vest and a helmet. You know, it's like I love
exactly. All the essentials.
Let me just quickly bring up. Mark's just shared with us here at the podcast photojournalism section.
Yeah, it's funny that the one in the top left has a bulletproof vest. Just to
it does.
Point.
That's very minimal. There's your kit.
Yeah,
Justin,
most of them are. I mean, obviously,
these.
there's going to be some that have some serious bigger kits, but yeah, most of them are like one or two bodies, one or two lenses, and then
there's even
like,
a helmet.
Yeah. Wow.
Look at that old school reporter style bag. Wow, that's fun.
Yeah. They've all got those kind of like a Domke shoulder bag or something like that, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't get any more real than that, is it?
Yeah, no, that's
not make anything.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really fun. Oh, amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh shit, that was a body. Sorry, everyone at home. I didn't realize that was coming. Well, look, that pretty much brings us to the end of episode 32 of the Camera Life podcast. Before we wrap up, obviously, I want to say a huge thank you to Mark Condon for joining us and sharing your experience, your journey, for keeping me employed, and for telling us a little bit about what inspires you and what motivated you and where you're at now. And we wish you all the very best on your future endeavors. I'm sure that given your ability to find a gap in a crowded space and create something unique, I'm sure you're going to be fine. So thank you very much on behalf of us for tagging along for this chat this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been great. It's been really good talking to you both and meeting you like this on the first time, Justin. And I wish you all the best with the podcast. It's great that you're doing this for the community. I hope everyone finds it interesting as I do.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, mate. We love what we do. It's it's a good outlet, I think, for creatives and community is essential, and it's a really key part of what Lucky Straps is trying to do and what I do with my own work and working with the Fujifilm group. You know, community is a huge part of photography, and I think that Shotkit actually makes us feel a little bit closer to other photographers in a way that real photographers and visual creatives are writing the reviews. It's not just there's no AI involved, let me tell you that much. But it's not just people that are spitting out reviews about products they've never touched or looked at. There's a real people that get out on the street or get out in the countryside and test this gear. And I think there's a lot to learn from sites like Shotkit. So be sure to check it out. Before we finish up, any creative projects ahead for you this weekend or this coming week, Mark? Or you got any family events you want to photograph? Or
no, got nothing except school holidays, which is a mixed bag of pain and pleasure. So just getting through that, as any parent will tell you.
I hear it.
There's a lot of juggling.
Yeah, I mean, most of my kids are adults, 5 kids, 3 adults, 2 are still at school. But the youngest one is needing the most time.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I like having the kids home sometimes. Justin, how about you? What have you got on this coming week? We've got Bright next weekend.
Yeah,
have you got any gigs on?
No, a photo shoot this afternoon for Flow Mountain Bike, which will be fun. Get out and I'm going to absolutely hammer the 50mm Canon 1.2 lens again. I've been shooting with that heaps for action sports at wide open at 1.2, and it's so much fun. It takes you back to those days of being like, oh, did I get that in focus or not? Because it's like, whereas if you shoot with a regular, like a 24-70 or whatever, pretty much every shot's in focus all the time. It's like, and they just look fantastic. And 50mm is just normal focal lengths where everything looks quite real. It brings enough foreground into it and stuff, but it's still, so I'm shooting hybrid photo and video this afternoon with the R5 Mark II and the 50mm 1.2, and I'll probably take something else as well, a wide and one or two other lenses, and my rotation backpack.
Where do you share those photos, Justin? Are they like on another site?
Yeah, so I was going to say, so Flow Mountain Bike Australia, they review mountain bikes and do a lot of other content as well. They're a content site. And basically almost every bike review on there I've shot the photo and video for. There's starting to be a few new ones now because their team's getting bigger and bigger, so there'll be some reviews coming in from like Canada and stuff, but almost every bike review will be my images. I haven't done anything personally with the images, which is a shame. I've got this, I don't know how many bikes I've reviewed, a lot. Or I don't review them. I shoot. The tech editor lives in Bendigo in my town. So he does all the reviews and the writing, and I just shoot all of the stuff for him. It's such a fun, I don't know, it's turned into like a fairly regular thing for me. It's sort of the only paid photography work I do now. And it's like I get to be creative with it, but I'm also just out mountain biking around. It's super fun. Super fun outlet to test gear.
I'm looking at this image of a bike that's just in the air with no cyclist on it. I'm wondering how the hell you've done that.
That might not be me. I don't even know, because some of the stuff, if it's news for like a new bike release, it could be the stock, like the where's that? Oh, I didn't do that. No, see, that's it. Yeah, so that's like a first look. So that means that bike's just been released, and they've just used. It's a news article, and that's just it's just photoshopped from the manufacturer. But if you just underneath that, you'll see the Merida E160 review. Actually, I'll pull it up on here.
Can you bring it up?
Yeah, done. So where are we? Present.
Yeah, just so people get an idea of what shooting sport with a 51.2 is like, because that's really unusual.
I'm trying to remember if I used it on this particular review. But yeah, basically, no, that was a wide. I don't know if I used it on this one because I've been bringing it in and out of the fold. So not all these shots are mine, but shots like that are mine. That's a 7200. And that is the 7200 as well.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, I don't know, the 50, which I can't even remember. I should have had some stuff prepared. It'll all be in Lightroom, but I don't know whether it's easy enough for me to pull that up. But if I do this and then this.
So, Mark, are you riding a road bike or a mountain bike or a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both, and a gravel bike around here. Gravel's, I've got a lot of nice sort of, gravel country around here. So it's kind of a cross between the two.
Oh, cool.
I can do this. Share screen. Window. Lightroom. Last chance. We'll see if this works. Otherwise, I won't hold you guys up any longer. But
there we go.
So this is from a shoot with a cross-country racer called Tarly. And I'm positive. Yeah, so these would have been with the 51.2.
Oh, wow.
And wide open. Just getting him coming up. So it's probably hard to see on that's not loaded.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, you nailed it. So how many keepers versus throwaways are you getting with that lens?
Man, so on the old R5, it would miss a lot to the point where I didn't really use it. On the R3, probably not quite 50-50 so probably every third image would be sharp, which is pretty impressive. Depends on the conditions, like backlight. Like if it's harsh backlight, it would be a little bit less consistent. But this overcast condition it was very consistent. That was with the R3. And then what's crazy is with the R5 Mark II, it's even better in my initial testing than the R3, which is a little bit insane. almost every second probably would be in focus. And certainly getting a keeper, because the thing is, I don't even shoot. The frame rates are getting ridiculous. Like mountain biking is pretty quick, but because it's a review shoot rather than like a race or something, I'm mainly shooting at 15 frames a second, and it's plenty. If it's a really, really fast section where they like come in and out of it very, very quickly, maybe I'll bump that up to 20 or something like that. But like they can, 30 frames a second. It's just,
That's
you'd
crazy.
easily get keepers at 30 frames a second with these new cameras at 1.2. And yeah, I love that just sort of melts away. It almost has that medium format sort of Fuji look about it.
Yeah. Canon's at 1.2s have always had that. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and that RF lens is very, very sharp at 1.2 as well, which is quite crazy. Whereas I think I never shot with the old 1.2, but a lot of people said it was a little bit soft, wide open, even though it still looked nice. So,
Yeah, very
anyway,
crisp.
so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing this afternoon, which is always heaps of fun, just to get outside, take a sort of a fairly minimal kit, and get some fun photos.
Cool.
Nice. Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Better let you guys get on with your day.
Yeah. So once again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Greg.
Enjoy your shoot this
Thanks,
afternoon.
Mark. Yeah.
And thank you for joining us. Once again, guys, following along, please make sure you like and subscribe. Tickle the bell button in YouTube so you get notifications of the upcoming episodes. We do have next week the Bright Festival of Photography. We're heading off on the Friday morning. But we will still have Thursday's show. We might chat a little bit about what's coming up at Bright for us. But we might also do some impromptu videos while we're in Bright. So stay tuned on the channel. Make sure you hit the notifications so you get word of those coming. Thanks for watching along, listening along if you're on audio. And we're signing off. Have a great day. Get out and shoot, no matter what camera it is, preferably a Fujifilm. Make sure you get out and shoot and chase a little light. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Catch you,
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Greg.